Tonight's episode of Canoehounds Outdoor Adventure Show is brought to you by Kid Products, stick stoves and reflector ovens proudly made in Canada. Algonquin Outfitters, with 5 key locations in and around Algonquin Park to serve your backcountry needs. Salis Marine, keeping you safe on the water since 1999. Ostrom Outdoors, custom fit canoe packs and barrel harnesses. Badger Paddles, handcrafted canoe paddles made to order. And Novacraft Canoes, connecting you with nature in Canadian-made canoes since 1970. Happy Tuesday evening, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Canoehounds Outdoor Adventure Show, a show that's going to bring you all closer to the great outdoors. My name is Dennis, also known as Canoehound, and if this is your first time tuning in for this great evening of discussion, you know what? Thank you very much for joining in. Hopefully we'll make a believer out of you and make you hit that subscribe button and the thumbs up and the whole 9 yards that go along with visiting a new YouTube channel. Anyways, just to let everybody know, we do have a great show lined up for you here with a star-studded panel. And it's going to be a good one, just getting by all the fangirling of the cool guys that we got here on the show tonight. But just like to start out the evening with a few announcements, as I always do, while that chat over there continues to populate. I can see the numbers are climbing and growing. Thanks very much to everybody that's popping into the chat. Let's see here. If you happen to miss our last episode, which wasn't last week, it was the week before that, we had the fellas, Brad and Graham from Agawa Gear, and we talked all about their business and their very popular Boreal 21 backcountry camp saw. And it was a really fun evening. You know, we got to learn a little bit more about their business, a couple of great guys. And we also got to hear some stuff about a new axe that they've just recently put through the Kickstart program and are getting set to launch that. You may have seen it on many other YouTubers' channels when they put it out there for testing purposes. It's called the ADK26. It's like a hybrid axe that breaks down into a hatchet as well as a chopping axe. So very, very ingenuitive way of connecting this thing. When they come out, you know what, I can see these things being very, very popular. Another thing that they also did was they made an announcement that they are currently working on a backcountry cook set, which I am very excited to see. I actually got a little sneak peek of the product in the green room, and I think the boys are on to another fantastic product. So by all means, if you haven't already picked yourself up a Boreal 21 saw or 15-inch or one of their 24s, do so. They're fantastic saws, and just wait for that new axe to come out. So that's going to be really cool as well. Also on that show, we did a swag giveaway courtesy of the guys there from Agawa Gear. And congratulations to Dave Cunninger, who won an Agawa Boreal 21 saw kit. Congratulations to you. I hear that they're actually going to laser engrave something on whatever you wanted on the handle or something along that line. So congratulations on that. That's a great prize to win by through the swag giveaway. So that's awesome. Let's see, next week. Hopefully everybody can tune in next week, as it is our regular season 5 finale, meaning that it's going to be the last official show of season 5. It's time for this guy to get out and start playing. I actually leave tomorrow night there on a nice little 4-day adventure up north. Going to go up there and fight off some black flies and probably mosquitoes. I don't know if it's too early for mosquitoes or not, but I know the black flies are really biting right now. So expect me to be all red and bloody when I get back, but that's okay. Nonetheless, I am looking forward to it. It's going to be a great chance to get away. But yeah, we're going to be having the season 5 finale next week. Going to have some past guests on the show. We're just going to talk about the season that is season 5. Hopefully everybody's enjoyed season 5. I know I missed a few weeks, but for good reason all the time. And we're going to be just celebrating a good year and hopefully, a great season upcoming next year. But there are going to be some changes. So if you want the full deets, you'll want to have to make sure that you get yourself in that seat you're sitting in right now to watch the show next week. And we're going to be having a bunch of great things going on. But we'll also probably have a great swag giveaway, season-ending swag giveaway So stay tuned for details on that as well. I understand this past weekend was the grand opening for the Canadian Canoe Museum. It was an invite-only type of thing. One of our guests tonight was actually invited and had gone along, and it's looking very exciting. From some stuff that I've seen in videos and from what I've heard around, they've done a fantastic job with this the new Canoe Museum up in Peterborough. There's all kinds of information on it online, and all you need to do is visit canoemuseum.ca. Canoemuseum.ca. Check it out if you happen to be up in the Peterborough area. Go there and check it out, man. There's all kinds of very interesting historical pieces when it comes to the canoe community, and yeah, you never know who you might see or run into there as well. So by all means, please do check it out. Congratulations to the Canadian Canoe Museum on your grand opening. I think yesterday was actually the first day that they were actually letting people through the doors besides the original gala people that went. So yeah, be one of the first. Get yourselves out there. Let's see here. As always, I like to acknowledge my channel members and thank them for supporting the channel, including a new member tonight that I seen here. Let me just see. Roaming Red Canoe. Thank you very much for becoming a channel member. Greatly supported. Please do drop me your mailing address, and I'll get you a nice sticker pack sent out to you in the mail. And yeah, we'll make that happen. But just send your information over to me at Canoehound at canoehound@gmail.com. Well, I had to think about that one for a moment. Anyways, all these fine people floating across the bottom have supported the channel for a great long time, and we do have a few milestones. Celebrating 36 months as a channel member, we have Graham Jordan. Graham, thank you very much. At 12 months, we have Jay and Sherry from Beauty of the Backcountry. They've been great supporters, and the theme song for Canoehounds Outdoor Adventure Show was actually written by Jay himself and performed, and he's the fantastic, beautiful voice that's singing Canoehounds Outdoor Adventure Show. So thank you very much for that. And let's see here. That's probably about that for that. Did I get everybody? Yeah, I got everybody there that are celebrating milestones. So that's pretty awesome. Let's see here. I'll just get rid of this. And then, of course, I always have to thank my Buy Me a Coffee peeps. Many people bought me coffees this week. We got Steve Bentley, Beauty of the Backcountry once again, and Roaming Red Canoe. Cheers, y'all. Let's take a dip. It is actually caffeinated coffee tonight, so that's a good thing. Thank you very much for the support there, everybody, as well. Birthday wishes. We have because I missed last week there, we didn't have a show last week. I'm going to be doing some belated birthdays, and we got some birthdays coming up. So good friend online here, Steve Evans, he's celebrating a birthday on the 19th. Joe Robinette, for those of you that are familiar, Joe Robinette, he's celebrating his birthday on the 19th of this month as well. Andrew Young, he's celebrating on the 20th. Happy birthday to you. Some belated birthday wishes go to Randy Greenall. This gentleman always pops into my shop. He's always welcome to pop in, and we sit there and talk, and he gives me all kinds of great tips on backcountry camping and winter camping and things like that. Very educated man, so thank you very much for that. Artist extraordinaire Mike Del Rizzo, he's celebrated a birthday this week. And Colin from the Dutch Explorer, for those of you who might be familiar, he just celebrated a birthday as well. And now, I would not be a good father or daddy if I didn't wish my daughter Victoria a happy birthday. Yeah, she's the mama to two of my grandsons and my baby girl. So yes, happy birthday to you, Victoria. I love you, kiddo. And lastly, because we didn't have a show last week, I didn't get the opportunity to wish all you mothers out there a happy Mother's Day. So happy belated Mother's Day to all you lovely mothers out there. Hopefully you had a great Sunday and made the best of the day. And hopefully your sons or daughters treated you really nice. So that's cool. Let's see if anybody has any special announcements that they'd like to get out on, well, what would be the last show of the season next week. Drop me an email here at canoehound@gmail.com, or throughout the season. This is the email. You could always reach me. I always answer my emails. And it's a great way to communicate back and forth with me if you needed to for whatever reason. And by all means, let's stay connected. And that's the best part of this community, is the connections that we always make. And then if you have any guests or hot topics, now this is something that I really wanted to discuss next week, but I'll even bring it out now. There's always guests and topics or things that happen, and the reason why I'm going to change the formatting next season a little bit is because I need to address some things during the summertime. Things happen in the summertime, and a lot of times they kind of slip under the radar, because at least as far as this show is concerned, because my season usually runs from September to May. I'd like to run the occasional show throughout the summer. So the best way is, one, if you see of anything that you think is worthy of a show, drop me an email. I'd really love to approach that. And then also follow us on Facebook so that you can be in tune with what's going on. And then, of course, our channel members, stay really tuned, because we will be doing some member-only live streams throughout the summer. So that's going to happen as well. So let's look forward to that. Anyways, been going on for a while. We're going to be going here with our guests on our topic until about 8 o'clock. And then at 8 o'clock, we'll take a quick little sponsor break. And then we're going to get back into inviting some people up if they have comments or something that they would like to share. And it will address a lot of the questions from the show here in the second half. But if you do have a question, please do put the word question in capital letters before your question, so I could see it and I can mark it here, and then we can get to it in the second half of the show. So that's usually how we work it, and we'll try to maintain that. Anyways, without further ado, let's start by tonight we're joined by quite the star-studded panel. I mentioned that earlier, to discuss backcountry food storage and safety, and to discuss the recent U.S. Forest Services law that mandates that all food and items with attractant odors must be properly hung from the trees to avoid attracting bears in the Boundary Waters Canoe area. The BWCA is what we're going to be calling it pretty much all night. So that's raised quite the stir. It's a controversial topic, has a lot of people upset due to varying thoughts, theories, and techniques of proper storage of food. Everybody has their own way of doing things. Not to say that yours is wrong or somebody else's is right, but that's what we're going to be talking about tonight, just to get everything out there, and then you go away educated, hopefully a little more, and then you can utilize that when you get into the backcountry. So first, we're going to bring up our guests here. Considered the Kevin Callan of the USA and author of numerous books, guides, and educator of the backcountry. Please welcome to the live stream, Jacobson. How you doing, Cliff?
Hey, man. Good to see you.
Cliff Jacobson, the real deal. Look at that. I modified that for you, Cliff. Let's see here. On the other side, he's considered the Cliff Jacobson of the North. He too is an author of several guidebooks and backcountry know-how. He's given too many presentations on topics like this one, and is very influential when it comes to tripping and backcountry adventures. Please welcome to the live stream, good old KC, Kevin Callan.
Run!
How you doing, buddy? No bears in your house, eh?
What do you got in that coffee cup, Callan?
Green tea.
Okay, I was just wondering.
Yeah, I'm off coffee too, and I had a coffee today, and I spilled it all over me and all over my new car, and I'm thinking, see, Kevin, you should not have coffee. Yes, I was going to appear naked because I'm Bear.
Bear, you were going to be Bear.
Yeah, but Christine said, no, that's a bad idea, Kevin.
Okay, we got one more panelist that's going to be up here with us tonight. This gentleman is somebody I rely on all the time when we have our bear episodes, because he is pretty darn knowledgeable, comes with a lot of facts and information. He's a YouTuber from the Thunder Bay area, has great knowledge of bears, like I said, and their behavior. He's also the author of a popular food dehydrating book called Backcountry Eats. Please welcome to the live stream tonight. If I get the arrow in the right spot, we got Kevin Ride. How you doing, Kevin? And you're on mute, buddy.
All right.
He's got his bear spray. You're muted, Kevin.
There we go. I know. I was going to say Whoa Bear, but
Whoa
the joke
bear.
didn't work.
No, you don't have
How you
any
guys doing?
volume.
I didn't know I was supposed to wear a hat.
Hey, what you got to come in a little clearer, Kevin. He's not coming in real clear,
Yeah,
is it?
Yeah,
I've got a terrible-
he's in the country, in the backcountry, kind of where he lives, and he doesn't get sometimes the best video, but he's knowledgeable nonetheless.
He doesn't
Love's
live in the
farming.
city.
I know, listen. I know what that's
Right.
like. I finally got. I finally got that cable internet put in last year, and before that, I was doing like 20 bits per second on the download and about 10 on the upload. Now I'm over 100. It's wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Okay,
I've got
boys. So
satellite internet,
we got a lot of
my
cool stuff to
download is
cover here
okay.
tonight.
My upload is a problem. And
There you go.
they hung fiber optic out on my road, so maybe next year, Dennis, I'll have a better connection for you.
Well,
That's
I know.
okay. We'll take you any way we can get you, Kevin.
Oh my Lord!
All right. So tonight I thought we'd chat about the issue, and I don't want to take up the entire episode here on just this whole U.S. Forest Services and the BWCA, because that's causing an awful lot of controversy. But I thought we'd also talk about safe options for storing food in the backcountry, the pros and cons of each, so everyone can do what they think is best for them, in their situation. So let's start a little bit. Cliff, you've been bringing to light quite a bit what's going on with the U.S. Forest Service and this whole law that I guess just started this year regarding hanging food in the BWCA. What can you tell us about that?
Well, I have no issue with people wanting to hang their food if that's what they want to do it, but it's not effective. In fact, many years ago, I was doing a bear class at Canoe in Madison, Wisconsin. There was about 400 people in the audience. And I asked how many of them had their food taken by a bear. And of that entire audience, if I recall right, 15 hands went up. And then I said, how many of you guys have had your food in a tree? 13 out of the 15. So the point is that if there are good hangs and bad hangs, as everybody knows, but about 98% of what you see in the boundary waters are bad hangs, period, which means you can climb up yourself as a kid and grab the pack. But putting that aside, the fact is that bears climb trees. Even fat old sows will climb a tree occasionally, and the kids scamper right out on the limb. So if she can't get up there, she'll send the kids up there. The second part of the thing is there's only one or two trees, if you're lucky, in the boundary waters that meet the specs of the Forest Service, which is, I believe, the limb has to be 12 feet up and 6 feet out or something. This is a coniferous forest, good luck. So you almost cannot meet what they're asking you to do. But there's an option. And they give you the option of putting your food in bear-resistant containers. Well, that's fine for hikers because hikers, you got a pack, you got to carry it on your back. It's not that much. Canoeists live more lavishly. We carry more food because eating well is part of the wilderness experience. You can't carry enough food for a week trip and a couple of bear vaults. You can't. So, my real question here is I don't understand why they're doing this, because anybody who spent a lot of time in the woods, which is us, knows that bears climb trees. And if mama can't get it, the kids will get it. And they're very, very smart. In other words, once they learn that there's a reward in that tree, they're going to seek out that tree in every campsite. They're going to learn which trees people put their food in, and they're going to climb up and they're going to get it. So the real rule for keeping your food safe is really just very simple. One, keep a deadly clean camp. Number two, completely seal. I vacuum seal. I vacuum seal just about all my food. And then put that in a pack, which is sealed. So if a bear can't smell your food or see your food, he won't get your food. And the problem is people think a feather falls from a goose 2 miles away and a bear can smell that. Oh, come on, give me a break, okay? When a bear is smelling is not your freeze-dried chicken tetrazzini. It's you. That bear's smart. He knows that when there are people in campsite number 12, there's food in campsite number 12, and there's only a few places that that camper can put it. So the point is, it doesn't work for that reason, and it also is a danger to people. Talk to Rob Kesselring, who can tell you stories about people who've thrown that rock over the branch and it's come down and hit him in the head. I think one person was even killed that way. So, you know, my take on this is the feds do this all the time. They find the lowest common denominator and they go for that. I think expertise should be rewarded, not villainized. Kevin and I know Kevin and I, we've done thousands of miles on rivers, okay? And we've camped out I've camped out, I don't know how many trips I've done in the North Country in Canada and Alaska, but a lot. I've never treed my food. I've never had one bear get my food. And on several occasions, I have had bears in camp, and I got the pictures to prove it. In one case, I had 3 food packs. This was a long time ago with teenagers in the boundary waters outside of camp, just on the edge of camp. And it was dark. And that bear was wandering around camp looking for food. And he passed within about 10 feet of those packs. He never saw him, or she never saw him, whatever, and left. So there's a big to-do over this because it affects how we go to the canoe country and paddle. And, you know, I don't mean to do a big rant here, but I just want to leave with another thought that I think is a consideration that I wonder about. And that is the Boundary Waters Canoe Area is not a park. It's a federal wilderness area inside of a national forest. And because it's designated wilderness, you can't put up metal poles and cables. Like you could do that at a park. You can't in the boundary waters. You can only do that with congressional approval. And it might well be that the feds who made this law are saying to themselves, we know this won't work. And when it doesn't work, we're going to petition the feds to put cables and whatever. And we'll need millions of dollars to do it because there's over 2,000 campsites in the boundary waters. So, I mean, there's a lot more I can add, but go ahead. Go ahead and hear from these guys.
I just wanted to say, I've got posted in the description below the video there. There's a link to the whole article about this whole situation in the BWCA, and they how do they possibly police that? Now you mentioned, Cliff, that there's like 2,000 campsites in the BWCA, right? How are they supposed to be policing this? Is it just going to be like by random, and if you're in the wrong place at the wrong time, that you that slap on the wrist? Yeah,
that's pretty much it. I don't know how big the crews are that go out, but I know in all my 50 years in the boundary waters, I think I've been checked 3 times. And so that might be about the average. Maybe one person gets checked every 10 years or something. They got a lot of distance to cover. But if you're camped on one of these big lakes where you're going in, you can probably expect to see some rangers. But once you do a few portages in, probably not. But in order to hit those 2,000 campsites, they're going to have to go way in there. Even if they could put boxes in, boxes sound real good, except for the fact that a lot of campers just fill them with trash. Then the Forest Service got another job. They got to go in there and clean those things, and they don't have the staff to do it. Then you're going to have trash. You're going to have mess all over the place. So,
Mr. Callan, what's your take on this? Like, I know that it's not a place that you frequent. Obviously, you don't go to boundary waters very often. But what are your assumptions on this? What are they trying to achieve, really?
They're trying to deal with the sheep, which we all realize. I mean, for example, if I went to the Toronto Outdoor Adventure Show, and I went to tell people what I do in the far north, where the trees are small, where the bears aren't habituated, the truth of the matter is I don't hang my food. You can't. And the bears don't even know you're there, to be quite honest. Right. So I go way back in the bush with the barrel, and not one of the food, not one of these, but actually a food barrel. And they're not bear proof. They do minimize the smell, whatever. But I go way back in the bush before dusk, and I put it there because that's the best place, not beside my tent, right? But I've never had a problem in the far north with habituated bears because they're not coming in because they don't even know who you are. But if I'm in Toronto and I tell a bunch of people that 99% of those people are going to Algonquin or Killarney, and I tell them that, that's foolish. I'm going to tell them to hang the food. And that's why the government is telling you hang the food. Because if they actually listen to me during a presentation and say, well, I go back in the bush and put it in a barrel, they're going to be on Canoe Lake and they're going to say, well, Kevin said, here we go. And that bear is habituated and will come in and say, well, that's a cooler. I'll smash that cooler apart and get the food. And that's been proven, right? The other interesting thing I found out today, I asked Ontario Parks, because I heard rumor last year that someone got a fine for leaving their food out while they went out fishing in Algonquin. A warden came in and said, you can't do that. And I asked a bunch of Ontario Parks people, and they said, no, we're just suggesting that. We're not saying it's law. Actually, it is law. And I'll read it to you right now. I found it. Storing wildlife attractants, unlawfully store wildlife attractants. This is in the summary of provincial park offenses. $125 fine. Do not maintain or store potential wildlife attractants, including food or beverages, food preparation or storage equipment, cooking devices or utensils, garbage or recycling products, scented products, or any other items that is likely to attract wildlife. So here's the thing. Well, why do they have that as a law? Well, why do we have a law that you can't go through a red light? Because people might be injured if they go through a red light. So,
Right, yeah.
you know, it's the thing is like, yes, I would be very surprised if a warden came out to me in Algonquin because I didn't hang my food. But that warden, if I looked at the case scenario, those people left a bunch of food out while they went out fishing. That warden was trying to teach them a lesson, saying, this is foolish. And they probably backlashed him, saying, you're blah, 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 blah. Well, this is the law. You can't go through the red light. It's illegal. You might think that it's okay to go through a red light because you are self-interest, but it's against the law. And what laws are created for is to protect the masses, not the individual. So Cliff can do whatever he wants, right? I mean, and all of us can do whatever we want. But why are these laws created? Why is the Boundary Waters changing the rule? They must have had a problem. They must have had people saying, hey, there's bears causing problems. What I really think is cool is some of the national parks in Canada are actually starting changing a new rule. And they've done this for 5 or 6 years. If a bear becomes an habituated bear, they remove the people. You're not allowed to go into that lake until the problem decease, right? Instead of shooting the bear. Because I gotta tell you right now, I had a job in Algonquin Park when I was a young kid. And it was on Obiango Lake, for example. There was a problem bear. I went out with the warden. Fred was his name. Just, come on, Kevin. We went out to the campsite that the bear problem was at. He started cooking bacon. And I thought he was just, a lazy government worker. Like, what, you having breakfast? Like, what the hell's your problem? He goes, nope. And he would put vanilla into the bacon. I went, what? And then put sardines into the bacon. I literally, 15 minutes later, a bear came in and he shot it and darted it. Didn't kill it. He darted it. He relocated it. And if you see a bear in Algonquin with 3 tags, God help you all, because usually by the 3rd tag, it gets shot. But now they're saying, well, we're not going to shoot the bear right off the bat. We're going to relocate it. We did studies for years. I had this job for 13 years where we spray painted the bear, it comes back from miles and miles away. So does a chipmunk, by the way. We did the same thing with chipmunks, and they travel like 20 kilometers to get back to where they're very territorial. So what is the government going to do? Just say, well, Cliff is right. Put your food barrel back in the woods. No problems at all. And tell that to thousands of people that go to Algonquin and Killarney Park. No,
well, to me, the answer is education. But first of all, I would say to you, the feds have done what you found in boundary roads. They've done that too. They've closed campsites. I don't know if they've closed them because of bear problems, but they may have. But they sure have closed them for overuse. And they pull the fire grates off them, and then they leave them for years. And I don't know, maybe they put that back again. No, that's a wise decision. But the problem is, what we have legislation with little or no education. I made a proposal 30 years ago that proposed that people who go to the boundary waters, they would have an option. They could take a one day, like a Saturday class, where they would learn about all these different things, okay? And at the end of the class, they'd get a card. And when they got the card and they went to the ranger station, you have to go to the ranger station to pick up your permit. But before you do that, they make you see this little movie. And then after that, you take a little quiz. This takes time. And if it's backed up with a bunch of people, you can be waiting for a while till it's your turn. Show this card, you get a get out of jail free card. You don't have to take the test. You don't have to see the movie, and you don't have to hang your food. Now the problem is since there's so many places in the boundary waters where the trees are too small to hang your food, it forces people to do the other alternative, which is you got to have your stuff in bear-proof containers. Now, I'm sure the outfitters in the area are, I don't know if they're thrilled about this, but they're going to sell a lot of bear-proof containers. But we all know if you're going for a long period of time in the boundary waters, and you may even cross over into Quetico, or you may cross into wild Ontario, you can't carry enough food in these containers. But if you don't have a container and you're pitched in an area where there's no trees or low trees, okay, you violated the law. Why not have a little one-day workshop that people can take only if they want and see how that works out? Because I can guarantee you, I would bet my life savings right now that hanging food next year in the boundary waters isn't going to make any difference, because the bears know where all those trees are and they're going to keep getting the food out of those trees. Mm-hmm. So let's look at a different solution.
You know, I'm just going to quick comment here, and then I'm going to head over to Kevin Wright here. A few years back, I did a solo trip out to Bonashare Lake in Algonquin Park, and I was wandering around the campsite trying to find a good place to hang my stuff, and I come upon this one area, and there had to be 5 or 6 broken ropes hanging from different branches, all in the same area, and there was bear scat all around that area, right? So just like Cliff says, they go back to the scene of the crime, right? They find something somewhere. They know there's a reward. They know the ropes. These are big animals. It's a pinata to them, right? So
that's what the Western Park people, they call them bear pinatas.
Yeah, Hap Wilson does too. I've seen somebody say that in the comments. Kevin, you have shared on a lot of our past episodes on bears, a lot of different storage items that you have. Can you go through a few and maybe talk about the pros and cons of them?
Sure. This is what I like to put my food in when I'm doing most trips. This is just an olive barrel that I've cleaned up, and I've added some U-bolts on the top of it so I can hang this if I want to. It has a gasket on it. It's not bear proof at all, but it has a gasket on it, so it cuts down on smells. And so when I'm in the front country, when and even on the way to the backcountry, you often camp one night or more in the front country, where you have messier campsites, you get more people. You're not in control of the people who camp before you. I will hang my food. And as Kevin says, when I'm doing a trip, last year I was in St. Raphael, thinking of going to Wabakimi this year. Been to Woodland Caribou many times. I won't hang this. I'll just hide it, back in the forest somewhere. But what I've graduated to is one of these. This is the counter assault bear keg. Kevin's got one of these. I like these because they've got this screw system that you can bolt, 3 different screws to hold them in. The bear vault that I have behind me requires you to screw off the whole lid, which is a bit cumbersome sometimes. But this is almost 12 liters. And one of these with dry food, this is a 20-liter olive barrel. This will last me a week, no problem. So, 2 of these will last me more than a week. I've done 11 days with 2 of these full.
What?
To do
what?
2 weeks.
This would only hold my whiskey for 2 days.
Well, yes, correct. So, So I might get a third. I'm starting to like these. They're a bit pricey. They're a bit heavier than just bringing a food bag. They're even heavier than this thing. This thing is actually quite light. I really like these, but you know, I think Cliff hit it right on the money. There's good bear hangs and bad bear hangs, and I've had some really good ones. I think it's a skill people should practice. I'm not bad at it. There's ways to get better with pulleys and 2 ropes and all that kind of stuff. And there's 2 tree hangs if the trees you're using aren't branchy enough. But again, that's a skill, and people have to practice it. You shouldn't just decide, oh, I'm going to pack a rope and hang my food. In my early days of camping, with a group especially, once you have a group of people, that food bag gets giant. And it is a bear pinata because, you know, someone's underneath trying to hold it up, and you're not going to get it 6 feet in the air. You're going to get it 4.5 at best. And that's not a good bear hang. So, you know, that's
if the
I think
branch
that's what's
doesn't
going
come
on.
down on your head, right?
Yeah. And Cliff was right. There is a woman who was killed by trying to hang a bear bag. It happened once. It's rare, but it can be dangerous. And I think what's happening in the Boundary Waters, I'll show you I don't know much about the Boundary Waters. I live pretty close to it. I've never been. I probably never will go because it's busy. And I'll show you that in a second here. Window. So I think this is what's going on, is that the Boundary Waters have been experiencing high rates of visitation through COVID. 2020 and 2021, they've had over 160,000 visitors per year. And last year they dropped down to 150. And 80% of their visitors are backcountry canoe trippers. So they've had an influx of people who are new to camping. The Boundary Waters is kind of a funny shape. Like it's long and lean. There's not a lot of interior area. So I'm going to, you know, Cliff can challenge me on this, but I'm going to say most of the Boundary Waters is what I would call front country, where, you know, you paddle in and spend a day and set up camp. And if you're a sloppy camper, as you know, 40,000 people might be, you're going to create some problems. So I think that's what's happened here. Interestingly enough, I took a look at Quetico. Quetico is a little bit larger than Boundary Waters. It's adjacent to Boundary Waters. The last visitation numbers I could find were 18,000 people per year. So that's, you know, that's a lot less. And sometimes I find Quetico busy, especially in the front country. So very different story, Quetico in the Boundary Waters. And I suspect they have a lot of problems.
Mhm.
Well, I would say, Kevin, you're pretty accurate on what you said, but I'm not sure about the front country thing. Yes, there are a lot of newbies who will go out to one lake. And the thing with newbies is they carry a lot of stuff. All right. And so they don't like to do portages. So yeah, a lot of them will camp on the big major lakes like Brule Lake, Lake One, you know, and so forth. But I don't know what the numbers are, but I would bet that, boy, I've never done just a permanent camp, gone in there, done a permanent camp. And I meet people on portage trails. You go way back in there and you're going to meet people at campsites way in the backcountry. So I think this is a little different than maybe, I don't know. I've never been to Algonquin. I don't know. But the front country is obviously, as you say, the heaviest used. And I think that's also where you're going to see the most rangers paddling around, you know, trying to find people. But a lot of us go way back in there. And with these lightweight canoes that we have now, you know, these long portages aren't a big deal if you're 20 or 30 years old and not my age. So it's not as simple, I think, as saying it's just a park and they go in right here. You know, but that might be an option for legislation, that if you're camping on these front country lakes, this is what you have to do. But give those of us who have more experience, who go way in the backcountry, give us a little leeway. That's all I'm asking.
But Cliff, the major problem with that and why laws are created is you know that the people that say, I know what I'm doing, have no clue what they're doing. it's self-indulgence, right? And those are the ones that get in trouble, right? So therefore, all of us now have to hang our packs.
Yeah, but but Kevin, it's like you got to get a driver's license to drive a car. There are people who are driving without a license. But if you're driving with a license, you're entitled to do certain things. If you're driving without a license, you're not entitled to drive. I guess is all I'm saying is there should be a point where you can prove your competency and you can prove that what you're doing has never caused a problem and probably never will. We shouldn't dumb everything down to the very bottom. You know, there was some thoughts a few years ago in the Boundary Waters. They wanted people to carry out human waste. Now you're going for 2 weeks in the Boundary Waters. You're going to carry out your waste? Give me a break. It's you know, it gets to the point where if you overregulate, then you get to the point where you just discourage people like you and me from going there because we don't want to deal with the hassles. The newbies, they don't know any better. Anything you tell them, they're going to do. I know this is an argument I can't win, but I don't know one single experienced wilderness traveler who hangs their food. And I'm probably going to hurt somebody's feelings when I say this, but 20 years of canoeing and camping in the Boundary Waters and never going anywhere else beyond that is not expertise. You're paddling, or you're in a park-like area.
I've got a I've got a poll going right now in the chat there. Do you hang your food barrel in the backcountry? So far, we've had 81 replies, and we're almost 50-50. 51% say no, they don't hang. So it's just almost a 50-50 split. We're at 50-50 now. There we go.
Well, it's not about the hanging. It's about whether, again, if a bear can't see your food and he can't smell your food, he won't get your food. Okay, you can pack food so that it has very little odor by vacuum sealing or even with plastic if you do it right. I've had bears come within a half a dozen feet of food packs that have been on the ground at night in the dark and they haven't seen them and smelled them. You can do that. So it's not about the container. It's about making people understand how the campsite has to be clean, no stuff on the ground, and don't put the pack in the same place everybody else does, because if you do, it's a bear pinata.
Mm-hmm. So you're absolutely right. I agree with you, right? But today is a good example. So I was in Halliburton teaching my students, right? And, they got some issues, whatever. At lunch, one guy takes off downtown for lunch. He does 100 in a 50 downtown, right? In his pickup. The cop catches him. What does he say? I was there. He goes, I know how to drive. The cop threw him to the ground and put cuffs on him. And no, you're going to jail right now. You did 100 in a downtown core at a 50, and you tell me you know how to drive, so therefore you're safe?
Kevin, you're right about that, but I think you're comparing apples to oranges here. As all I'm saying is there's a reason why you don't drive 100 now. Somebody's going to get hurt. But if you put your food in a tree, in a typical campsite in the Boundary Waters where there are bears around, it's gone. I mean, you take a poll of people who've had their food in trees in the BWCA, and I'll put money right down. You're going to have more people who had them in trees have lost food than those who haven't.
Well, it's also.
So what are you accomplishing? Tell me what you're accomplishing.
It's like education, like Kevin is saying too. It's education. You have to show them how to pack it or hang it properly, right? So, I'll tell you right now what I do if I do hang my food in Algonquin, for example, like Canoe Lake. I would never go to Canoe Lake and have that's the most popular lake, and the bears are just notorious there, right? So I go way back in the bush when we get to camp, not at dusk. When I get to camp. I two ropes and then the rope between, right? And so it's way up, and I put a pulley system in the middle, right? And then because sometimes my food pack is way too heavy. Once again, I have too much good food and whiskey. And then so I put a flagging tape on that area, and then we have our dinner. And just before dusk, someone goes back with a flashlight with a reflective tape, and they see the reflective tape, and it's already set up for them. And then they haul it up. But it's not near the campsite. If you hang your food on one single limb, hang out with all a bunch of rocks below it, that means all the campers have done put a rock in a bag and thrown it over the limb. The bear knows that tree. You're right. The bear knows exactly what that tree is all about. But that's education. So I'm not saying not to hang. I'm saying teach people how to hang. And also education is far better than giving them a ticket for it.
Mhm.
I think
While
you know,
we're
you're
talking
not.
about teaching people to hang, Mr.
It's
Wright, do you have a diagram for proper hangs?
Well,
Do you have that
I'm
handy?
sharing a picture now of some barrels in a two rope system. So Kevin was talking about a two tree system. This is one that I did many years ago with a cross rope and 3 pulleys. It's a
My Lord,
challenge
that's a
when
lot
you
of
have
food,
a big
man.
group. That's a lot of food. Yeah, that's a big lunch.
You must have a recipe.
It's a
book.
challenge. I must have written something about cooking in the backcountry or something. But with groups, it's a challenge, right? The more people you have, one of those things will last me for a week on a solo trip. But if you're going with 6 people for a week, that's a lot of barrels, right? So just, there are ways to hang food. It's time consuming. It's problematic. You're very likely to bonk your head with a pulley when you throw it over the branch, but it is possible and you can get good at it. I've sort of switched to the bear keg system because of, getting older, having a harder time throwing ropes. But anyway, that's one way to do it.
You
Can
you
you,
share
Dennis?
that picture, but I'm going to share this picture that Cliff actually sent me, and there's a few
Yeah,
images
sure.
that he sent along to me, but this one here, this is a very
Well,
popular one up
Show
online.
Dennis. Show him the one with the grizzly bear and the electrical line.
Oh, okay. Yeah, but anyways, I'll do that in one sec, Cliff. But this here, look, this thing is traversing a line, a rope, to get at a bird feeder, right? So just to show that they have the ability still to get to any type of hang. And this is the one that Cliff, you want to tell us about this one?
Oh,
Yeah, my brother-in-law in Alaska sent me this, and what's happened is, these bears are smart. They learn that they look for ropes, and if they see a rope, they bite through a rope, and down comes a treat. Well, this guy made a mistake. He bit into an electrical line, and you can see the results. In Backpacker magazine a few years ago, there was sort of a cartoony story that said smarter than the average hiker. Okay, and it said that campers in the Adirondacks are now rigging 2 ropes, a white rope and a black rope. And they haul their food up on the white rope, on the black rope. So when the bear sees the white rope, he bites through that. So the black rope is supposed to fool the bear. Well, obviously those bears are going to figure that out, pretty quick. To this I would add, and I know everybody here is familiar with this, but for listeners who aren't, it's a great read. Type in yellow bear on your search engine, yellow bear. She was a little female black bear, but I think they tagged her with the yellow tags, how she got her name. And when they introduced the Bearville 500, which is a very popular thing, a very popular bear container, she figured that out in a couple of weeks. And then she told all her friends. Pretty soon, every bear on the Adirondacks could open it up. So then they sent it back to the factory or whatever, and they had them redesign it. Well, they redesigned it with a double tab instead of a single tab. Yellow figured that out in a few days. And, when I do my bear show, I pass one of these containers around. People try to open them. And I tell them, pretend that you have no opposing thumb, because the bear has no opposing thumb. But you do have these 4 fingers, okay? And you do have a mouth that's about this long and opens about this wide. And you do have your legs. See if you can open it. And they can. And then they begin to understand how much dexterity and intelligence these animals have. So, I see Kevin's point about it's a law. We all got to follow the law. Well, yes. But the question is, does the law do what it's designed to do? Is the law actually going to prevent bears from getting food? And the answer to that is an equivocal no. because in any Boundary Waters campsite, there's usually only 1 or 2 places to hang a pack. And your average newbie is not gonna walk 100 yards out of camp to put his food. They will get lost and not find the campsite again.
Right.
So I rest my case.
Yeah. Now, one of the big challenges too, though, is they implemented this law, but it's a law that's going to be next near to impossible to follow in most cases because, as you mentioned, small black spruce trees that don't have limbs that stick out 6 to 8 feet. You know what I mean? Even if you tried a suspension of rope going across from one tree to the other, you can't even do that because the trees are so they have limited anchor with their root systems, right? And
Yes.
you put weight on them. And I know this from being a hammock camper. They do this. They come in. So you throw 1 or 2 barrels on there, and before you know it, the trees are like this. Your food's back down to 6 feet high. The bear is going to get it anyway. So they've implemented a law that's going to be next near impossible to.
Well, then we go to Kevin Ride's point. Kevin was showing you a number of containers that they're not bear proof. But of course, the way he handles them and what he does with them, the bear's not going to find them. All right. But you would have to use the way the law is stated. If you don't hang your food, you got to use an approved bear proof container. So that means that everybody going to the Boundary Waters is going to have to buy a bunch of expensive containers now. And whether they use them or not, and if they have the containers, they're not going to hang the food. So what are they going to do with the containers? Think about it. You think they're going to go back in the woods and put them? No, I got my container. It's bear proof. They're going to go put it at the edge of the camp. The first time a bear finds one of those containers, bingo, he's hooked. Every time he sees one of those on the ground, he's going to take it apart. And they are really good at taking apart even bear proof containers. Sometimes it takes them a while, but they can often get it apart. If you're going to make a law that works. That's all I'm saying is this. What's the intent of the law? If the intent of the law is to keep people and bears apart, okay, that's what you'll do. Food here, people here. If the intent of it, which what they say, is to keep food away from the bears, it's not going to work.
Mm-hmm. Right. Kevin, I see you have another image. You want me to put that up?
Yeah, I just thought I'd put up what the ultimate solution is a metal box. This is in Jasper in the backcountry. Parks Canada flies this stuff in via a helicopter, and they set it up, and it's the best way to deal with food in the backcountry. It perhaps it compromises your backcountry experience because you hike all day in the mountains and you come to a metal box, but this will keep bears separate from your food. You've got room here for 6 different parties, and they have lots of these things. And I've got an older style that they put up in that they still have in Puckasaw National Park, I believe, on Lake Superior. I'll put that up too if you want.
Sure.
And
can I ask you a question about that, Kevin?
Sure.
Okay, the question is, does the U.S. federal government, do you think, have enough money to put metal bear boxes on over 2,000 campsites and maintain them? Because I say people are going to leave trash in them. You know, that would cost millions and millions of dollars. That stuff cannot be brought in by a helicopter. You cannot fly an airplane into the Boundary Waters, which means there's only 2 ways they can get those boxes in. One is in the winter, and you can't use snowmobiles. Well, so one is either in the winter with dogs, or 2 in the summer by canoe. It's not practical. It's a wilderness area. It's not a park. And what's happening is the federal authorities keep taking what works in parks and trying to apply it to the Boundary Waters. They're different. Whoops.
Yep. Here's the other picture. Here's the other picture.
Yeah, this is an older style that this is in Puckasaw National Park. This is on the Coastal Hiking Trail that has boat access by Lake Superior, so they can bring this stuff in from boats. So, Cliff, does the National Park System or the National Forest have the money? You know what? Whenever I visit national parks or national forests in the States, I'm always amazed at how much more developed and how much more resourced they are than in Canada. So I don't know what the answer is. I can't speak to the politics and the rules and regulations, but I'm just saying the ultimate solution. And if I was managing any sort of an area like this, I would put metal boxes in every front country campsite that I could. Not so much in the backcountry, but if you keep food away from bears in the front country, you're not going to habituate those bears. That's the ultimate solution. Will it work? I don't know. I can't speak to the laws in Superior National Forest and Boundary Water Canoe area, but that's what I would do.
The American government spends $10,000 on a simple wooden metal hammer, right? So, right?
But Kevin, I would support what you just said. I would support those boxes in the popular front country lakes, but logistically, I just can't see how they can put them in some of these backcountry campsites. Some of them are a half-mile portage in, and it's super rugged. You can't go in you can't use wheels. It's on your back. And
there's got to be a way. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, but I think the front country idea, I think that's a sound solution.
So what about this being a solution then? What about, like, so let's say Algonquin Park? We'll ask the parks people that know where the bears are. They pretty much know where the problem bears are. I've worked there. I know that they know where the problem bears are. So they choose the lakes, the campsites that are usually the problem. Like, for example, Canoe Lake or Joe Lake. And then they put those containers on those sites, right? And then they actually say, oh, by the way, it's law for you to hang it. And then people will say, well, catch me if you can. Well, we're not going to try to catch you. We're just sort of saying we need to cover our asses, because basically we're at least giving some information. Because if someone gets attacked by a bear and someone says to the Ontario Parks, well, why did that happen? Well, they can say, well, we told you to hang the pack. That makes logical sense of what they're doing. I don't agree or disagree with it, but I can see why they're doing it. So Puckasaw National Park, that trail, for example, Kevin, they needed those. I don't know if you hiked it lately, but there was major bear problems there. Those bears came to every time. Well, probably one bear was walked down the way. And so, so you don't have to put them on 2,000 sites. I don't think anybody logically would do that. But if you tell everybody, oh, by the way, hanging food packs are really a good idea. Oh, and by the way, if you leave your food out while you go out fishing for the day, we're going to give you that fine for $125 for Ontario Parks, because you're stupid. Like, what were you thinking? Right? And then the next person on that site is going to get attacked by a bear because of you. So I have no problem with the law for that. It's like a good cop and bad cop, though, because you will have that one warden that has ego trip. And I've been in parks like that. Like, I had one guy come up to the Kawarthas, and my buddy Ashley and I were cleaning out the campfire pit. We're out there for just the day, but we're cleaning out the garbage, a bunch of beer cans, beer bottles. He came up to me, and I knew the main warden. He was a good friend of mine, and he's in the canoe, and he's looking at me. He goes like this to me. I went, what the hell's going on? And this new warden that's going to be hired, he slam bases us thinking that we left the garbage. I went, actually, we're cleaning the garbage. He goes, let me see your fishing license. And we give it to him. Let me see it again. And I said, you already saw it. Why would I show you it again? He goes, I'm doing the talking here. I went, so my buddy, Speedo Man, starts putting the garbage back in the fire pit. And what are you doing? He goes, do your goddamn job. We're not doing it for you. We're out of here. We haven't done anything wrong. When I got home, the main park warden gives me a call. He goes, yeah, we got to apologize for what happened today. That was his first day in the job, and it was his last. Right? So there's always a bad warden, but the majority of them are there to educate you and protect you.
No, I would agree that the rangers that I've met in the Boundary Waters and in the Adirondacks, I should add, have been terrific. I cannot say the same thing about Western U.S. National parks in the backcountry. I had a very bad experience years ago on the Green River in the upper Gates of Lador section. And but that's a story for another time. But yes, I would agree. I would agree that most rangers, and I mean, I'm not talking about the enforcement thing here. I'm not talking about personalities. All I'm trying to say is, if I go to the Boundary Waters, I'm not going to personally to do one of those hangs, even if you got everything perfect. It takes time. It's time consuming. You got to do it. You want to get up early in the morning. You got all that to deal with. I don't have the patience for it. Okay. I just don't. And as far as carrying a bunch of heavy, bulky containers, these big containers that we're showing here, 2 of them will take up an entire pack. The ones that Kevin Wright is showing us. So what, you're going to make 4 trips over the Portage? I don't know. It's okay. Yeah. I'm going to lose this argument. Okay. There's nothing I can do about it. The rule is there. I'm just saying, and you guys can write this down in old-fashioned Technicolor. It's not going to work. Okay. The bears are still going to get those packs out of the trees because people aren't going to do sophisticated hangs even when it's possible. They're just going to put it up. And furthermore, they're going to continue to be, I don't like to use the word slobs, but they're not going to keep a clean camp. They just don't understand.
Yeah. Well, here's a good another example for you. So I just wrote a piece for Pally Magazine, and I guess there's a trend now for backcountry canoeists not to have a campfire throughout the whole entire season, whether you're not allowed to or not, because of the global warming. They're saying we should not have campfires anymore. So they asked me to write a piece on this. So I looked into it, and yeah, there's a huge trend of people wanting to do that. My response was, yeah, but you'll not have a campfire because of global warming. That's fantastic if that's what you want to do. But the yahoos that actually light the forest on fire by accident, or because of their stupidity, are still going to have a fire, right? So you're not getting anywhere. I'm going to ask people out there just to respond when you're with your percentage wise there, Dennis. I'm going to read that again. So who knew that it was illegal to not hang their packs? So I'll read the law again from Ontario Parks, right? It says storing wildlife attractants, unlawfully store wildlife attractants, $125. Do not maintain or store potential wildlife attractants, including food or beverages, food preparation or storage equipment, cooking devices or utensils, garbage or recycling products, scented products, or any other that are likely to attract wildlife. Now, that law has been in place for years. I didn't know it. So let's ask everybody, who knows that it was illegal not to hang their food? And I'm guessing 90% of the people would say, well, I thought it was just, a suggestion from Ontario Parks, but it wasn't. Who's been fined? I found out one guy. And why? Last year, because they left all their food out while they went out fishing. And the warden said, you can't do that, man. Yeah. And they're like, yes, we can. Well, actually, you can't. It's illegal. So I think we're getting a little worried and uptight about something that maybe isn't a bigger issue.
Yeah. Okay. So I just posted that as another poll. We're going to take our quick little commercial break here. A good chance to empty a drink or bring on a new one. Kevin Ride, you said you have to step out for a bit. You're going to try and pop back if you have the opportunity.
We'll do. Yeah.
Okay. Very good. We'll see everybody in about a minute and a half.
Okay.
If I can find the right button.
There's nothing like being out there. For over 50 years, we've been connecting people with nature by building classic Canadian canoe designs using the best materials available. We built a reputation on durable, dependable canoes that allow you to focus on what's important, whether that's unplugging in remote wilderness, spending quality time with your favorite people, or nailing the perfect line. Visit novacraft.com to find the perfect canoe for you and locate your nearest authorized dealer.
Tonight's episode of Canoehounds Outdoor Adventure Show is brought to you by Kid Products, stick stoves and reflector ovens proudly made in Canada. Algonquin Outfitters, with 5 key locations in and around Algonquin Park to serve your backcountry needs. Salis Marine, keeping you safe on the water since 1999. Ostrom Outdoors, custom fit canoe packs and barrel harnesses. Badger Paddles, handcrafted canoe paddles made to order. And Novacraft Canoes, connecting you with nature in Canadian-made canoes since 1970. Alrighty, and welcome back to the second half of Canoehounds Outdoor Adventure Show, also known as Overtime. We got a great topic going tonight there, discussing do you or don't you hang your food bags and all the things that are going on with the backwater canoe BWCA. There we go. So we're gonna bring our guests back up here. No swag giveaway tonight, but we're gonna bring Cliff back up and Kevin Callan, and we're gonna continue this conversation.
I just got a text from somebody. It's kind of interesting. When you guys are talking about, it's a non-issue. I just remembered it is an issue. It's a $5,000 fine. And there's a lot of ways to interpret that. Yeah, $5,000 fine. That's
and up to 6 months in jail, right?
No, that's fine. Okay. And the law says you have to hang your food. I think I got the numbers right. 12 feet high and 6 feet out on a limb. Now, there are very few trees even in the Quetico that meet that in a campsite. But supposing the guy hangs his food 3 feet out because the limb won't support that, and he can only get up 10 feet. If you really wanted to be a nasty federal agent, you could fine him for that. You're not meeting the specs. That's why the whole thing is too vague. If you want to talk about hanging your packs, hanging works if you have poles and steel cables. It works, okay? Because the bears can't even climb those poles. But in the boundary waters, you don't have any of that, and it's up to the individual to figure it out, and the federal authorities will have the discretion to do what they want to do. I will agree, they probably won't. But as Kevin pointed out, it's law.
You say that they're like, they can't climb them poles. I still revert back to this picture. This is a talented bear, man. This is a very talented bear, to be able to get there. I've seen the further picture of this one too, where he's actually hanging upside down, eating the seed out of the feeder, right? So they're crafty animals, man. They'll find a way, And
Dennis, remember the video Chris Prouse put out, and actually it's not on her site anymore. She had to take it off because there were so many bad comments with her. But it was on, I think it was Canoe Lake or Joe Lake, and that was a problem site, and there was a system set up for people, and she used it. And it was the biggest bear I've ever seen in my life. The video was terrifying. I've never seen a boar that big, and it got the food from that hanger and completely demolished one of these to get the food. Right. So, they had to delete the video because so many people were knocking them for having their son out there. Yeah, which is just stupid. Like, oh yeah, don't bring kids out there because the bear might come into your camp. Sure. Those two women actually handled that bear professionally, and it was fine. But you're right. I'm kind of going back to what I'm saying is that you never know. Right.
I got a question here for you, Cliff. I had somebody comment. I posted the ad for this show on, I think it was on the BWCA Facebook page, or Facebook group, and someone mentioned on the post, it says, "Why do we discuss these types of things when it's already too late and when things have already been implemented?" So was this decision snuck in the back door, or did people have forewarning, or did the U.S. Forest just go?
That's a great question. And from what I understand from my friend Peter Marshall, who is the communications director for Friends of the Boundary Waters, it was kind of snuck in, and paddlers were not. Nobody really asked experienced paddlers what they thought about it. I never heard of it. I didn't even, and I try to keep it up with this stuff. I didn't know about it, and all of a sudden, bingo, it's a rule. This should have been discussed, and all the ramifications of it dealt with before it was put in place. So now what we have is kind of a can of worms. And I don't know how it's going to flesh out. But as all I know is the outfitters are going to be selling a lot of bear-resistant containers.
Because like before they pass laws like this, like surely they must have spoke to the parks, or well, the part that is the parks, right? But like Friends of Boundary Waters, like did they not have any input into something like this that that might say like, hey, look, really, where are we going to hang this stuff? You know what I mean? Because they set out a law that's forcing people to fail.
Well, that's kind of the point. Again, if you had bear boxes or you had poles with steel cables, okay, you do that, then you not only separate people from the animals, but you make it impossible for the animals to get the food. But when you make an obscure law that requires people to do something, when in fact, I would even say if you visited 10 campsites in the Boundary Waters, you would be hard pressed in each campsite to find even one tree that will work. When you talk about having your food 6 feet out on a limb, think about this. Some campsites are pure conifer trees. There's no big birch trees that you can hang a pack from. Sure, there are some, but
The tree,
You
the trees
know,
for that, you would need like the big hemlock trees, right? Maybe
yeah, we've got hemlocks,
or white pine. Yeah, but
white pine.
not
We have
everywhere.
some red pines, birch, but not every campsite has that. Of course,
Right.
just like Quetico. I paddled in Quetico, and there are places in Quetico where everything's pretty dwarfy, and other places, where it's not. The two Boundary Waters and Quetico. This is the same ecosystem.
Mhm.
Maybe it's this. Okay, so around Christmas time, I always talk to my students about environmental issues and about saving the planet and how we're going to do this. And I said, okay, look, go have a good Christmas and ask your parents for money because you need it. Yes. And I go, when you do that though, ask for a lot. Right? So they'll go home and let's say they only need $200, but they'll ask for $1,000. And they'll be at Christmas dinner, and the parents will put their knives and forks down and said, well, we don't have that money. We can only give you $500. So they come home, and they're like, Kevin, it worked. We don't need $1,000. We only needed $300. We asked for $1,000. We got $500. We only needed $300. Maybe the Park Service is doing that. Maybe they're doing this to piss you off, to make everybody all, and they're getting their point out.
Well, again, it's not a park; it's a wilderness area.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Don't.
See, I know, but I understand the rules are different. I'll tell you, if I thought it worked, if I was convinced that if everybody treated their food in the Boundary Waters, it would work, I probably would be okay with that. But you know what? Every indication I have where I've talked to people that have done that in the Boundary Waters, they're the ones who've lost the food. Okay? So if you make that a law, they're still going to be losing the food. If you want to stop that, then you got to do what Kevin Ride said. You're going to have to put in metal containers or pulleys with steel cables. And you can't do that in that area without special congressional approval because it's not a park. It's managed by the Department of Agriculture, U.S. Forest Service. They may get that. They may be able to convince, but personally, I think the best solution to the problem, if you want to do it mechanically, I like Kevin Ride's suggestion that they take the most popular lakes where people go in and you go ahead and you put those lockers in. Those can be serviced fairly easily because these are big lakes with maybe hundreds or dozens or hundreds of campsites on them. And then leave the backcountry alone. Just leave it alone and leave the hanging thing alone because you know what? It's not that much of a problem back there. It's the problem where you have the masses of people camped one after another on the lake side by side. And that wouldn't cost millions of dollars to do. So I like Kevin Ride's idea of doing that. That makes sense. But then you're going to have a maintenance problem, and you're going to have to hire more summer staff because you're going to have to clean the garbage out of those things. But that's
maybe for a reward system as to you know, if people bring out a bag full of garbage, you give them a patch, you know, Good Samaritan patch or something like that. You know, there's different ways or different things they could have done rather than maybe wasting money on implementing this type of a law in that area.
Oh,
Perhaps invest in education through Friends of Boundary Waters, through the Parks Commission or whatever it might be, right?
You know, let me just tell you a little history here. If you went back 30 years ago, 40 years ago in the Boundary Waters, when you picked up your permit, you got a plastic trash bag, and they put your permit number, wrote it right on the trash bag. Okay. And then you were asked at the end of the trip to put that in one of the Forest Service as you pass through town in the trash container by the Forest Service. Okay. Then if they found trash on a certain campsite or whatever, they could link that to the bag. Or if they found your bag back there that you're thrown in the woods, they could link that to your permit. But then what happened is money got tight and they quit giving those bags out. They give them out on the Buffalo River. It's great. Everybody gets a dedicated trash bag. So they quit doing that because they don't have the money to do that. So now we're looking at, we're going to have the money now to put metal lockers in. And the other thing is, you know, I used to be a forester, and the Forest Service prime goal is timber production. That's what the Forest Service does. The recreation is secondary. The BWCA is unique because it's actually managed by the Forest Service, whose secondary function is recreation. Okay, so I'm just saying, Kevin's idea is a very good. I like that. Giving them a trash bag with a number on it, like we used to do. That's a good. Those are things that will kind of work.
Yeah,
but the present law is
still give bags in Algonquin Park.
Someone just told me that they don't anymore. I didn't know that. I also got a couple of comments sent to me personally here that will just spice this up beyond belief. One person is saying, if you allowed us to bring guns to Algonquin, this wouldn't be a problem.
Guns to Algonquin? It's a park. Give me a break. What are you going to do? Shoot the bears?
In fact, I have 5 people right now ask me the same question. I have 3 people ask me, if they put a camera on each site, then we will know who actually is doing everything wrong.
Okay, you put a camera on sites in the Boundary Waters, that's the end of it. I'd never go there.
I'm just reading these comments that I'm getting. This isn't the comment channel. This is personal comments I'm getting.
Read some more. Read some more.
Well, the main one is the gun. Like if for bears, bring a gun or don't go in the woods.
Oh, come on.
I just posted a link to anybody who might want to join us on panel for 2 minutes. I got a feeling there's going to be a few people who might want to jump up. So if somebody wants to come up, ask a quick question, or has something to add to the conversation for 2 or 3 minutes, please do join us.
Thank goodness, because Kevin Ride is just talking way too much. I swear, honestly, he goes on and on.
We were talking about systems, barrel systems and stuff that are better for the backcountry, the bear vault or the yellow canister. What are your thoughts on these here? They're called Ursacs. They seem to be pretty popular as well. Something that you would tie to a tree. I know, Cliff, you have something. I seen a comment that you put on Ursacs one time about use in the BWCA. So what are your thoughts on that?
You asking Kevin or
Cliff? You.
I have an Ursac. I've never used it. I've lent it to people, and they've used it, but there's never been a bear that's got into it. I think maybe the Ursac is more practical than the other ones, though I have heard stories of bears being able to tear them up. But it's probably would have to be a pretty big bear and a pretty strong bear. But so they're pretty good. You could put your food in there. But again, if the food you put in there is not completely, free of obnoxious odors, he's gonna grab that thing. I don't care how tightly you have it tied to a tree. He's gonna bite through that and he's gonna run off with it, and your Ursac's gonna be gone. So, a bear-proof container is only going to work if what you put in it is not an attractant. Now, that's another subject I suppose we could talk about, because I got all sorts of emails from people talking about what they can do to kill the smell.
On the other side of the spectrum regarding that, Kevin Ride below me here, who he conducted a bit of an experiment with an Ursac. Can you tell us about that, Kevin?
Yeah, I've got a couple of Ursacs, and I ruined one by doing this experiment. I put a bunch of sardines in it, open can of sardines, and the thing was ruined because it was dripping wet with sardine oil. And I live in a rural area, so I put a couple trail cameras up and I hung it in a tree, and I waited for bears to come. The first year I got everything. I got a deer walking by, which of course wasn't attracted. I got a coyote. I got an American marten, raccoon, a lynx, and I finally got a bear, which really enjoyed biting into it. They will puncture an Ursac, especially when you lace it full of sardine oil, which is kind of crazy, but I was trying to get the bear to go after the bag. It held up very, very well to the bear attack. I've also tried odor-proof bags, and an open can of sardines in odor-proof bags and Ziploc bags, and I've done some experiments with that.
What'd you find with the odor-proof bags?
I was surprised at how well they worked with a sardine can. I wish I could do more replicates, but a couple times the bears came up. I had it in a box screwed to a tree so that even if the bears went at it, it would take them a while. The bears sniffed the box, but didn't pursue, like, to try and break into it. They didn't try and break into it, even though what was in there was sardines. So I think they can smell it, but if it's not overpowering, if it's not attractant enough, they'll leave it alone. So dry food, vacuum seal bags, barrels to, add another seal to it, all that will really help. And I think bears are actually probably queuing in more on the site, and, a barrel hanging in a tree. I get you, Cliff. I think they queue in on that, especially when they've had a reward before. I think if they haven't had a reward, it probably doesn't matter where you put it as long as you reduce the smells.
Yeah, and I agree. I think your point about that maybe people don't realize, because I do get a lot of questions about, well, how do I get rid of the odor? How do I get rid of the odor? And I've talked about these lock sack odor-proof bags and so forth. But then I tell people, well, you can't have just filleted a fish and then put that fish in that odor-proof bag, because you got fish smell on the outside. So you also got to be careful with that. But I think that was interesting what you said about the odor-proof bags. I like that. And I also found it interesting, because I found the same thing, that you're basically saying by you're putting your food in, you guys use barrels. It's more of a Canadian thing, but it's becoming Americanized. You have a seal on there, or if you have your food pack that has double plastic seals in it, they can't smell as good as the legend is. They can't be across the lake, like I say, and smell your freeze-dried chicken tetrazzini. They smell you, and that's what brings them in.
Have at it, Kevin.
Yeah, this is a slide I made for a video I did about bears and smells. And so this is why I was really surprised when the bears didn't go after an open can of sardines in a scent-proof bag, because I've watched videos of sniffer dogs find narcotics and all kinds of stuff. There's a lot of videos on YouTube where some guy goes and hides a contraband substance in a industrial park, and the dog finds it. But the dog is given reward. The dog picks up on that small bit of odor, and it knows it's going to get a Scooby snack or whatever. Bears have millions more scent receptors than bloodhounds, and black bears are even better than brown bears. And so I'm really surprised that like, I think they can smell it. I just don't think they cue in that it's enough. So, and they haven't had a reward. I think once one bear decides, hey, I smell a very hint of sardines, and they open it up and get a big reward, well, that show's over. I think they'll probably develop that behavior. But I think if you really cut down your smells, again, dried food, vacuum seal inside a bear barrel or just a normal barrel, you'll really improve your chances of the bears ignoring you. Nothing's perfect.
Just to emphasize how much they can smell, actually, the one bear years ago on the portage into Nelly Lake in Killarney, I did my first load first, came back, and the bear was tearing my pack apart. And I'm thinking, what is it getting? There's no food in there. It was my toothpaste. It smelled my toothpaste. Right. And the other one was I was out fishing. I was in Halberton Wildlands. I was out fishing. My camp was set up, and I saw it was midday, and there was a bear going in my tent, and actually grabbed that bug repellent that with Skin So Soft. Remember the Skin So Soft bug repellent?
Yeah.
And it literally drank the bottle of it. So obviously it smelled it from miles away.
I've left a can of gasoline because I have trails on my property and I have a brush saw, and I cleared half of it one night, and I left my brush saw and my can of gas, and I came back the next day and a bear had torn into the gas can. It just decided.
Does anybody understand that?
Yeah, well, yes, I understand that completely because I saw the same thing. What happens is if these bears get operantly conditioned to anything, they're going to stay that way till they don't get the reward. For example, if a bear if you've seen bears in dumps, but once a bear bites into a tin can, say he finds a tin can and he bites into it and he gets a reward, he's going to go to look around the camp, and if he finds a can, and it might well have been the one you're talking about, Kevin, that he's probably not smelling this nasty stuff inside of it. It's a can. Last time I bit into a can, there was food. I'm going to bite into every can that I find. I think it's that simple.
Mm-hmm. I don't understand the gas thing though. So I have issues with in my backyard, a fox. I finally caught who it was. So that was a raccoon. But they're drinking my gas for my lawnmower. Like, they shoot it all. Like, what do they get out of gas? Well, they might get high off it, maybe. I don't know, but
I'm sure your lawnmower runs on whiskey, Kevin.
These are foxes, Kevin, did you say?
Yeah. They literally chewed the plastic nozzle to get into my gas. And, well, for what? They must be drinking the gas.
You know what? I wonder if I personally, I don't think that's what's happening. I think they're chewing that plastic nozzle because there's an attractant odor there that they don't know what it is, and it's soft enough they can chew into it, and maybe I'll get a reward out of it. I think once they get into the gas, I think it's more the nozzle than anything else.
That makes more sense because I still have gas in there, but I just never.
Well, that's good. You can't mow your lawn then.
I know. That's an excuse anyway. Oh, I couldn't mow my lawn today.
Okay, guys, I just brought Donald Dakota up here on panel for a question. What do you got for us tonight there, Donald?
Well, I'll say hello. I agree with all you guys. I'm going to make a couple of points real quick. In the Boundary Waters, the little movie that they show you that Cliff had mentioned, it's a total joke. It's a happy little Forest Service movie. Cliff's right. There should be an education thing. You get your card. People that have some knowledge of what to do, because there's so many people that go in that area that are clueless. Cliff has seen them. I've seen them carrying lawn chairs and coolers, et cetera, et cetera. The other point, I do hang my food pack. It's canvas pack, like you do, Kevin Kellen. I head way back in, away from camp. I do a pulley system. I do not tie a rock to a rope. I use a little stuff sack, little weight of rocks in it, and I swing it up into the trees. It never gets stuck, ever. What I do, though, is I pick the trees that was stuck there, big old spruce trees, something really thick. And I span my rope it might be 50 feet apart in trees. And I'll get that pack over 20 feet up in the air with pulleys. That's what I do. Never had a problem. If there were no trees, like Cliff has mentioned, Callan, you've been there. I'm going to stash that food someplace. I do vacuum seal my food. So these are all good points. The big problem in the boundary waters, there's so many people, they still peel bark off birch trees in campsites. They don't get that. You'll come to a campsite, there's a pile of green firewood that's still alive. So that's what we're dealing with. So it is education. But as far as one more thing too, what bears can and cannot smell. Years ago, a grizz broke into a backcountry cabin in Yellowstone. It ate everything, except there were cans that had sauerkraut in it. Single sauerkraut can. So that grizz could smell through a damn can. So, like you said, Kevin Callan, a bear went and got your skin so soft or went after toothpaste. Nothing with scent, aside from your own stinky person, can go into a tent. It all has to be cached. So the biggest point all you guys have made is education. And we're barking up a tree. We're not going to educate all these people. So if with the bear vaults and things like Jacobson said, yeah, maybe these big busy lakes like Moose Lake and Ensign's a good one, Basswood, get some things on those campsites. Sure, Canoe Lake, get some bear vaults on those campsites. But yes, stashing your food does work. Hanging your food does work if done right. But I've seen people with, even on videos, they got this little bag of food hung. Hell, I could climb up the tree and grab the damn thing, much less a bear. So it's education, and it's good luck for people. But I think Cliff hit it on the head. If, especially in the boundary waters, and a lot of us paddle into Quetico, a class you can take online even to get your card. Okay, you're approved. Same could be for Algonquin. You're approved to get your permit because you took a legitimate thing, not the little happy movie they show and they ask you, yeah, you got to pick up firewood on the ground and it's this big and blah, blah, blah. And same thing too, if we do have bear vaults in the backcountry, the way people are in the boundary waters, they're going to be full of garbage and full of human stuff. That people throw their garbage in our boxes in Canada. They're called a latrine in the U.S. People still throw their food in those, and they're told not to. So it's a no-win situation.
Let me respond to that. Let me give you two examples of how the Forest Service doesn't educate and things that haven't worked that were supposed to work. Okay, this was never a law, but it was in the literature and everything. It was leave your axe at home. You don't need an axe, okay? You can start a fire basically with a Swiss Army knife. Okay, so look what happened. So a lot of people did. They left their axe at home. And then I remember one canoe trip Susie and I did years ago in our solo canoes. We're going from camps. They've seen different campsites. You're right. There's no axe damage to the trees. It's all saws. Okay? So this is all saw damage. All right, and then you go into but do they teach people how to start a fire without choking a fire grate? The answer is when you go into one of these campsites and you see a fire grate that's choked with green stuff, these are not bad people. They're just people who don't know how to start a fire. But did the Forest Service show them a way to do it? No. They just said, all you need is a Swiss Army knife and a couple of matches and leave your axe at home. Go have fun. So there's no real education going on under the premise that people are uneducable. That's not true. If I believe that, Kevin and I wouldn't have books out there that people are reading. The problem is we're not getting the newbies to learn that stuff, but we can. You want to make a requirement that's going to fix things, you make an educational requirement. Start with that. That's my take.
You are right on. An educational requirement would work in the boundary waters, Quetico, Algonquin, Killarney. It would work everywhere, and then we could start limiting the problems we've got.
But to play devil's advocate, right? Okay, so if you get into that, then it's only going to bring up another uprising by people like us that say, my God, got to get a driver's license. Now you got to get a boat license. Now you have to wear your life jackets. Now you have to do this. Now I have to get education for this. So the Forest Service is damned if they do and damned if they don't, right? So they're probably trying something that's going to say, okay, it's going to hit you in the pocketbook. That's where people listen. They go, I don't want a $5,000 fine, so okay, I'll hang my food, right? But like I said, they set it up for failure right now because there's no opportunity to do it at every single campsite. Kevin,
those people don't pay for their fines. have you ever met those people that do those things? They don't give a shit.
Right.
So my students today, they're being racist little shits today. I kind of had enough with them, and I said something I always say to them. I go, quit speaking out of your father's mouth. And they looked at me. I go, you get my point. Evolve, become better people. Because whoever taught you that was right is wrong, right? So they got it. But again, the same, and at lunch, what happened at lunch? The guy went down, did 100 kilometers an hour through a 50, through downtown. Like, what did I just say to you guys? And what did I said to him afterwards? I go, now you have a record. Good luck getting a good job. What do you mean, Kevin? I went, I told you. The worst thing you could ever do after this program is get a record. Because now you're nobody. Nobody will ever hire you in a good standard. Well, that's not fair. I went, it wasn't fair for you to go 100 down to 50 downtown.
Well, we used to have in Minnesota a hunter education program. I was part of that. I taught fire building. I taught wilderness ethics. I taught navigation, map and compass. Okay. That's dead now because there's a saying in education, whenever a good thing comes along, it's the first thing that gets cut. Years ago, when I taught environmental science at Hastings Middle School, I had an entire unit on wilderness ethics, which included ethics, fire making. They had to start a one-match fire, how to use a map and compass. The list went on. It was a 2.5-week program, and I caught so much grief from my colleagues over this. You can't believe it. Why? Because I was taking time away from them teaching electronics or why the moon turns or whatever. But I've been out of this business for over 20 years now. There is not a year that goes by that I don't get a letter or email or call from one of the kids who is in that program, how they've taught their parents and so forth. But one of the problems is that this is off the subject, but it's part of it. The testing companies run what the schools do. It's the testing companies. You can't have something new. You can't have something that's better because it's not on the test. Now, I'm going to complete this by saying when education first started, they started schools to keep their kids safe from being eaten by saber-toothed tigers or whatever. It was practical information. We're not teaching practical information in school anymore. We're teaching the internal anatomy of earthworms, cell biology, all sorts of things. And they're nice, but there's only so much time in the curriculum. Teach outdoor skills. We have an outdoor class here in River Falls High School. It's one of the few remaining ones. It's filled to the brim. They have to cut it off. They only have one teacher teaching it. Don't tell me education can't work. Don't tell me people are stupid. They're not. But we just don't want to teach them the right way. We just want to make a rule. And then when we make the rule, we don't tell them how to get around it or how to live with it. Like leave your axe at home. Okay. Don't burn green things. If it's cold out and you're frustrated and you don't know how to build a fire, you're going to try everything you can. And that's why these fire grades look what they do. I'm sorry. Another rant, boys.
Well, you hit a chord there because this is my last day teaching outdoor. My job is done because they cut. No, it's not. I can't retire. I have no money. But the government in Ontario and the colleges decided to cut 29 programs. Well, actually 42 programs to be quite honest in total, and 3/4 of them were environmental programs. So there is no fish and wildlife. There is no conservation officer program in Ontario. They cut it. right? There is my students that I teach, they can't go into a program that I've taught them. And who got the money was industrial development, right? So yeah, you hit a chord there for me right now, because I've got 1 day left, and after 34 years, and I thought I made a change. I don't know if I did.
Well, Kevin and I, we've talked so many times. I love this guy. And, I haven't seen him teach, but I know he was a wonderful teacher. And, guys like this are leaving and not doing this anymore. I got to tell you honestly, this is where so many of our problems lie, not just in the wilderness, but in society. Okay, it's enough, I guess.
Okay, guys, let's do this. We got about 15 minutes left of the show here, and I'd like to kind of close the show on a good note. Basically, I'd like to go around the panel here. Now, Donald brought up some great points as to how he does it when he's in the backcountry, how he's hanging his food, how he's trying to safeguard himself out there from encounters with, these bears that might be coming into your camp to steal your food or whatever. Let's start with you, Cliff, and give some positive pointers as to. I know you've already touched on it, but a bit. But let's give some of your Cliff Jacobson Cole's notes as to the best way to store food properly in the backcountry, in your opinion.
Okay, I build a little on what Kevin Ride said, and I guess the first thing that you have to understand about these bears is what Kevin said. There's the ones that have been habituated. That's your boundary waters bear. And there's the ones that haven't. You're going north of the boundary waters, you're getting way up north, okay? And then there are young bears, teenage bears, and they're the most, I won't say dangerous kind, but they don't know what they're doing yet. Mama kicked them out of the nest, and they're very curious, and they're going to do all sorts of things that teenagers would do that they won't do when they grow up, okay? So when I get one of those in my camp, I become more concerned. All right. Now, in the boundary waters, I do what I've said I do. First of all, my food has no smell. It does. The way I pack it, it doesn't. And I tell people, if you pack the way I suggest in my books, you're going to cut that odor down to, it's not going to be zero, but I don't think a bear is going to smell it across the lake. And then I just take that pack and I set it out in the woods. Just set it out in the woods, out of camp. Okay. Now, I've never had a problem. Neither have other people who've done it this way. But there's a point. Some people are stupid. I actually had somebody raise his hand once. This was at my Bear Talk in Canoe Copy. And he said, Cliff, you said, take the food out of camp. Quote, where does camp end?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you got that problem. Okay, so that's what I do, like in the boundary waters or habituated places. Obviously, if there's a steel, or bear vault, I'll stick it in there, of course. Now, if I'm on one of my canoe trips in the far north, it's in camp with me. It's underneath my tarp, and I don't worry about it because those bears are wild bears. They don't know what's going on, and I'm a long way from home. It's an airplane ride away, and if a bear comes in and starts messing with my food, and I've done this, I have the pictures to show you, okay? That grizzly by the teapot is a prime example of one. I talk to him. I watch their ears. I watch their expression. They can't understand my words, but they can understand my body language. But when I'm in northern Canada and I'm responsible for a group of people, I also have a high-powered rifle. Now, I'm not going to shoot a bear unless I have to. If I did in Canada, I'd probably still be there filling out paperwork. But it's the rifle that gives me the courage to talk to the bear calmly and unthreateningly. And it has worked again and again and again, even with that bear. I don't know. Have you got the teapot bear photo? I don't know. Did I send you the one with the bear in camp with the teapot? Well, okay. If I'm in a non-habituated area, I just keep my food in camp. It's all tightened up, closed up. It's under a tarp so it won't get wet. And I've done scores of trips in Canada, northern Canada, many of them above the Arctic Circle. Never a problem. The only time I've ever been afraid of a bear has been when we did the trips to Hudson Bay, when there were polar bears walking all over the place. That was scary. So that's what I do. I've never had a problem in 60, 70 years of doing this.
Can I add one thing too? I've often heard that you should never, if you're not hanging your food and you're stashing your food, that you should never stash it along a shoreline, because how often do you see bears or any other animal for that matter walking the shoreline looking for food? You know, a bear looking for a dead fish washed up on the rocks or something along that lines. So it should always be back, and maybe even is it advisable to maybe strap your pack to a tree?
Well, you know, I still get people who write in, and it's funny. I don't know what kind of old books they're reading, but they talk about putting their food in a canoe and pushing it out and having it, 20 yards from shore. And I write them back and I say, not with my $5,000 Kevlar canoe, And I also had a picture. I've lost it now, but it's a great photo. Remember the old Alumacraft with the riveted? No, it was welded keel on the Alumacraft. There was a picture of these guys that stored their food under an Alumacraft, and a bear. This must have been a dumb bear, because he kept pounding on until he hogged the whole boat. And when he couldn't do that, he somehow got his claws under there and started trying to peel the keel off. So the picture had the keel going up like this. The bear never did get the food, but I don't know how the guy got home because the boat was ruined. But yeah. No.
Well, Mr. Callan, what can you leave people with?
Well, when I got into Mogami youth groups, we did that float out thing because that was the thing we're supposed to do. I've never understood it. I would like, what? We're doing what? But it kind of made sense in one sense, because there was like so many people in camp. Like there was a bunch of kids. The food, with no way we were going to hang it. And it was stored in, back in the day, Wanigans, before barrels even were known, right? So we did that, and we tied it out. We basically what we do is get a line with a rock on it, anchor the boat out, and then tie it to the shore. And throughout the night, I'm thinking, if a storm goes, we're done. And my boss would say, well, we already have canoes on shore. If we had to go get the canoe, we can go get it. I go, but bears swim. And he actually told me, he goes, yeah, but they can't push up into the boat, right? I got to say, I worked there for a few years. I just thought it was just, this is just ridiculous. But we had no other option because we had no barrels at the time. They were Wanigans, wooden Wanigans. And yes, we can put them back in the bush. But yeah, I got to say, Cliff, though, the majority of the time, we just stored the Wanigans away from the tents at night with food in them. And we had no problems with them. I'm not saying you're right, man. I'm not saying but it made more sense to do that at the time than to hang, because we could hang. It was way too much. And I didn't get the whole thing of putting the canoes and floating them out in the lake. I was like, I'm not comfortable with that.
Let me add a thought that goes along with what you're saying, but goes a bit beyond that. And that is, we should talk about that. What, because people ask this question a lot. What should I do if I get a bear in camp? And if you remember the early stuff in the Boundary Waters, it used to say, I can almost quote it. Quote, try to scare him away. Throw rocks at him and try to hit him. Okay? And the video, the original Forest Service video, showed them throwing rocks at the bear and the bear running away. We did that once on the Fond du Lac River in Saskatchewan. A mama and her cub. I'm telling you, that bear almost had us for dinner.
With a cub?
Oh,
With a cub?
She had a cub. She ran almost right through the fire. She chased the guy out into the lake, woofing and clacking her teeth. We got everything in the canoes. It was like a little peninsula. I can't remember what lake it was on. It was Fond du Lac River. And as we went around, she'd already gone through the woods. She was out there standing on a rock, just deep in water, clacking her teeth. So what I tell people is, here's the deal. Bears are a lot like people. There's even-tempered nice bears, and there's real mean guys. You don't know what you're getting. What you are getting is something that's much bigger and more powerful than you are. So best not mess with it unless you know exactly what you're doing. So I say if a bear comes into your camp at night, you know what? You can get out of your tent and go look at it if that's what you want to do. But I don't think it's a good plan to throw rocks at it and shot, do all sorts of stuff. Because first of all, do you think that bear didn't know you were there all day? That bear's been watching your campsite for hours. But the problem is, it's not a problem. He was too chicken to come in while you and your friends were up wandering around. So he waited till you went to bed. So what he's going to do, he's going to come into camp at night and he's just going to sort of walk around. He's going to look at stuff, see if he can find some food. And if he can't, he's going to leave. Now, let me close this by saying this is not rocket science. Okay, there have probably been cases where bears have come in the night and haven't done that. So the problem is the public is looking for a perfect solution. And it's the same answer I give them when somebody says, Cliff, I'm out there in a canoe and I'm a half a mile from shore and all of a sudden the wind comes up, the water is 40 degrees, it's blowing, the waves are being 5 foot high and I capsize. What do? I say, you die. So, some problems aren't fixable.
Okay, Mr. Wright, I know you are a fan of hanging your food. You have some great techniques, but tell everybody what some of your best takeaways are.
Well, I've had a bad bear experience, very similar to what Cliff was describing. I was camping with my mother's parents my wife's parents for the first time. The first time I met them, they said, hey, let's go to Quetico. And, this is 25 more years ago. And Nim Lake used to have a bear alley. We all used to call it. The bears were conditioned. They would wait at the end of portages for you to leave the food behind, and they would go after the food. That area is really near the park boundary. And I think there might've been some bear baiting just outside of the boundary. I'm not sure. But for about 5 years, there was a bear alley. And we camped there once. I told this story my first time on your show there, Dennis. And the mother bear climbed up the tree. She reached over. She grabbed the food pack with one hand. She let go of the tree. She held onto the food pack until she came down with the pack and the branch and everything. She had 3 cubs with her, two new cubs and a yearling from the previous year. She was still nursing all 3 of them. When we saw her in the morning, she was really, really emaciated. Like she'd been nursing three bears and one very, very big one. So we had a terrible night. And that's when I realized, because my mother-in-law had a can of bear spray, not one of these, but the smaller ones that was available 25 years ago. And I had that, and I had my axe. And I hadn't used either on a bear. So that's when I realized I wasn't sure what this would do or how it would come out. So getting back to what do you recommend? Number one, a clean campsite, as Cliff and Kevin said before. Bring some of this and know how to use it. Spray an expired canister or get an inert canister and practice how to spray it, because that will scare away a bear. And, hate to have to use this, but bring one along. If you don't have a high-powered rifle like Cliff brings in Canada, bring something like this that will give you some advantage. So clean campsite, be prepared to fight off a bear if necessary. And pack your food dry, pack it tight. If you're going to hang your food, practice that. Know how to hang it. Not everybody can do it. It's a challenge sometimes. And if not, I would, resort to, I'm starting to use the bear kegs. I like those. I'd probably need a third if I want to do 2 weeks, but as a solo tripper, or more if I'm in a group, but they do work. So that's another option.
Do we have time? Can I say a few words about bear spray, or do you not have time?
Certainly, yes, please.
Well, if you buy one of these cans of bear spray, they're pretty expensive. I think they're about $40 now. Okay, yeah. So the second thing is you want to be sure you get the holster with it. You don't want to stick this thing in your pack, because if you're concerned about it, you got to get to it. Well, that's the first thing. The second thing is they generally tell you that, I think it's like 1 or 2 years or something, you're supposed to get another one. You know what? they're $40. I don't think most people are going to do that. Yeah. So what I suggest you do, this was actually suggested to me by a fireman. He said, that'll be fine. Yeah. He says, yeah, counter assault in Canada. If it's got the bear on the container, you're okay. They won't hassle you. He said, shake it up about once a month. He says, because what happens is that the pepper or whatever, just I guess can coagulate or settle for a while. So he said, if you shake it up once a month, you'll be fine. So just to finish that story, I had a 10-year-old can of it, and I gave it to my daughter, who was a young attorney, and she's a very pretty girl. And so I said, listen, you can have this container, keep it in your house just in case. And so I was standing outside the house with her. I said, I don't know if it'll work. I think it'll work. Let's do a quick try. And I did just a tiny little hit like this. And somehow it wafted in through the screen of the windows or whatever. And she couldn't go in the house for hours. My wife, Susie, did the same thing, showing her mother this thing. She hit it, and they were out of the house for hours. So, it generally works very, 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 very well. So, and by the way, don't test fire that can, because if you test fire that can, you need to wash out the orifice, okay, with water and whatever, and alcohol, to completely eliminate any pepper smell on the outside, because the bears will be attracted to the pepper odor. There was a bunch of cases on the internet about how bears have where they sprayed an outhouse. A bear tried to take the outhouse apart. They sprayed rafts with the stuff, and the bear started licking the pepper off the rafts. They like the taste of it. They don't like getting sprayed in the face of it. And by the way, it doesn't. In some cases, it may be a one-time effect. They get sprayed with it, and this is particularly true, I believe, of grizzlies. And they'll run away, and then they'll start licking their chops and saying, "It's a little tasty, not too bad," and maybe they'll be back for more. So, but anyway, that's just some things about the bear spray.
So sorry, I go on too much, but this is a true story I got to share with everybody. True story. So Kip Spidell, a filmmaker I worked with for many years, Profiles in Nature, and he did a big documentary, and he interviewed all the people across Canada at the time, back in the 90s, who had got attacked by bear. It was a good documentary. His last night of the job, and he showed me the footage. He was at Banff or whatever, somewhere out west at the campground. And some, what Cliff would say, a newbie, he put his tent up and got the bear spray and sprayed his tent. There's footage of it. And then about an hour later, a grizzly comes in, takes the guy's tent down and rolls in it and starts eating his tent. It's amazing. And I said, why? What's going on? And it was the whole spray.
Yeah, that's exactly right. You can't pre-spray something and think it'll keep them, because they do like that. I mean, don't you like spicy food?
I like me some hot chicken wings.
Not in my eye.
In your armpits, and you'll be fine, guys.
Okay, gents, we're like 2 minutes from what's supposed to be the close of the show. Let's are you all good to stick around for like another 10 minutes here?
Sure.
I'd like to get to some of the questions that were in the chat, but okay. I do have one question as well that I'd like to put out there, and I've seen it a number of times in the chat tonight, is what do you do with your garbage? Can you burn your garbage? Just like you got to pack it out, and there's odor with your garbage too. What are some tips on handling your trash?
Oh boy, that should definitely be addressed. And I think some of the federal authorities aren't going to particularly like my take on that either. So
you're never going to be allowed back in Canada.
Let's talk about that. I mean, the pack it out rule is a good one, but it's like any other rule. You follow it too closely and you can get hurt. For example, if I was leading a bunch of kids out on a hike out west and there was some leftover dehydrated food or whatever that wasn't eaten, or even the bags, There's no way I would have kids carrying that on their back because a grizzly's going to bite into it. What you need, if you're in bear country, it's not a good idea to pack out food on your back. And if you're in and I know what the government says, you know, don't burn plastic, whatever. They're going to tell you to take those containers, those freeze-dried whatever containers, and wash them all out, okay, and then dry them and carry them with you. That's a good plan, but I don't think it's going to be followed. It's a lot of extra work. A lot of people aren't going to do that. If you just put it in a bag and you just carry it out, well, that's probably fine too. There's probably not enough odor there to attract a bear, but maybe there is. And if you're concerned about it, burn it. And burn it completely. Now, the idea that burning trash creates particulate matters that are unhealthy, I don't buy it. You burn a few bags in your campfire. What is it? 3 ounces of particulates you're putting out? Try the 10 gallons of gasoline at 8 pounds or 7 pounds a gallon. You're putting 70 pounds of particulates. So this is selective environmentalism. The reason why they're going to tell you not to burn this stuff is because people won't do it completely. They burn it and they leave plastic in there and whatever the case might be. But again, you know, there is an educational process that could fix some of these problems.
Mm-hmm. Right. Callan?
Yeah, I agree. If I'm on a 20-day trip or 10-day, even a 10-day trip, the first few meals I'll have meat, steak. I'm not packing that out. I burn it in a hot fire. I shouldn't, but I agree with you that the amount of stuff going in the atmosphere is nothing. But having a bloody styrofoam and plastic bag in my pack is not a good thing. Not just for bears. It's just good God. But after that, though, too, it's like, well, I pack out as much as I can, and I pack out as much garbage that I find other people do. Except there's a point where I snap. Because I'm bringing everybody's garbage out. There is a moment where I'll just snap. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not packing everybody's stuff out. But yeah, the really nasty stuff I'll burn in the fire, really hot fire, nothing left in it. But I'm not going to drink a beer and throw the can in there. Oh.
But you know, if when you make a law like federal authorities do, I think you need to consider, okay, this is the law. Okay, now what will people really do? So what you want to know, if you make a rule that is too difficult, people will not only not do that, but they will do much less. Example, you make a rule that says if you have to go to the bathroom or whatever and there's no facility, you go, I don't remember what it is, 150 yards from shore, whatever it is. I don't remember what it is. Most people aren't going to do that. I say they get lost. They wouldn't find the campsite when they came back. What you want to do instead is teach them what to do, something that they will do, and not try for pie in the sky, which might be nice. But as they get more experience, maybe they'll do that. But in the meantime, be happy with something rather than nothing. And that's my issue with a lot of this.
Sure. Awesome. Okay, we're going to get to some questions that I've starred throughout the evening. Let's just try to keep the answers quick and short, okay, because we're at that time now.
Oh my Lord, I have to work tonight, Dennis. For the love of God!
And because Kevin,
what are they going to do? Fire you?
Yeah.
Oh,
first question from really early on there from Super Good Camping is, I vacuum seal too. What about garbage, leftover stuff to take out? We kind of just covered that, right? So. Cliff, really quick, you did mention that you have a great way of making your food pretty odor proof. Is that just through vacuum sealing, or do you have another method that's cutting down on that odor?
Well, I vacuum seal pretty much everything. Okay. I even vacuum seal fresh eggs when I bring them in. I keep them in the original cardboard carton, double the cardboard cartons on them, and then I vacuum seal over that. And that all goes in a foam line pack. That's what Dan Cook's foam line packs. But yes, everything I bring in, even the first night, which is fresh food, if I bring in pork chops or steaks, that's all vacuum sealed too. And then from that, then it goes into big heavy duty plastic bag that's in my pack. And then outside of that is one of these big, huge portage bags. Bill Ostrom made the first one. Then Bill isn't making them anymore. Well, he may be now. I know he kind of restarted something. Paragus Northwoods Company took it over. So I have those twin bags, and then the pack is sealed. It's pretty odor tight. I mean, this is the same system I used on my Canadian trips. Never had a problem.
Cool. Brian Adventures was asking, what's the history of the Blue Barrel? Why do canoeists like it so much? Kevin?
Oh, me? I can tell you the history with that. So back in the 80s, Trailhead, Wally, I think Wally started it. But basically they started going to the far north on their trips, gutting and everything else. And they decided to use olive barrels to put their food and stuff in. Just if they flipped in the rapids, things would keep dry. Yeah. And then they progressed to actually barrels being made for it, like that. Like that. That's not something you would get at Loblaws. In fact, the old days, that's old I am. I used to go to the grocery store, and I would go to the recycling in the back of the store and get their olive barrels, and because they were throwing them out, and I would use those on my trips before all this happened. And then barrels became the thing. Talked to my buddy Andy, Recreational Barrel Work. Like he basically he went on shows with Bill Ostrom, and then he said, "Well, I'm going to have to sell something here because I'm always on the road with you." And so he started promoting the barrels, and so Wally Scriber, Bill Ostrom, Andy Baxter, it just became the thing. And I'll go to other places like even the UK and stuff like that. And they're like, why would you bring a barrel? And well, it's not bear proof. So a lot of people, in fact, I was at one outdoor store a few years back and I saw them selling them as bear barrels. And I went up, I go, who's the manager here? This has to stop. You can't do this, right? They're not bear barrels. But they're very uncomfortable to carry. So if you don't get a good harness system for them, because they're round on your back, right? Then don't do it. So don't buy a cheap harness system for a barrel if you're going to do that.
Ostrom Outdoors sells a fantastic barrel pack.
The which what?
Ostrom.
Oh yeah. He always has, right? So just look at the cushion in the back, because that's what you need. But I like them in one sense because they're organized. Yeah, there you go. They're organized, and what I do though is I have inside though I have the containers because in the old days where's my chips and pop, and I'd be looking through the bottom, and I've never taken chips and pop before in my life on a show. Anyway, the good things you're looking for, like a Snickers bar. So now I have these containers that are marked. So my dinner is red, my lunches are orange, my breakfasts are yellow. So I know how to get them all out of the barrel. Is it a perfect system? No. I like it. Some people that never used a barrel, like, why would you do that? In Quebec, a lot of them use buckets, lidded buckets, and that's their system, right?
I used that for years and years. 5-gallon pail with the snap on top.
Yeah.
Or the spin on top.
Yeah.
Spin on top.
Two wire handles to carry, or a wire handle to carry it.
Like Kevin, I've gotten so I like barrels too. But on a canoe trip with like 10 people that I would do in northern Canada, I take one barrel for the whole crew. But then food's not in my barrel. What's in my barrel is all the cooking equipment. Okay? The stoves, the gasoline, all the stuff that's bulky to pack. My food goes in standard portage packs, and I don't put all my food. In fact, anybody who's done any of these northern trips are going to tell you there's no such thing as a food pack. Why? Because if an animal gets that pack or you capsize, good luck, you're out of food. So the way we did it was everybody gets some food. Everybody gets, like, if there's 10 people going, then each one of those people basically gets food for a day. It may not come out completely that way because some people have got more community gear, but I spread that food around. So if a pack is lost or something, we're going to eat. And I would wager that you talk to anybody who spent a lot of time canoeing these northern rivers and stuff, they're not going to have a dedicated food pack. First of all, it's going to be too heavy. Yeah, that, of course. It's going to be too heavy, and that has nothing to do with bears. And if it goes overboard on a canoe trip and floats down the river and it weighs 50 pounds, or 60 pounds, good luck trying to salvage that thing. So it's a difference in philosophy. But yes, Kevin, you guys have convinced me barrels are great. I just don't think, and I think the reason why they're so popular with outfitters is if you're taking people on a canoe trip with outfitters, it takes some skill to pack a portage pack so that it's completely watertight. It takes no skill to put the cover on a barrel. They don't want to mess with it. So everybody gets their own barrel and they put their stuff in it. So it's a different philosophy.
That's one thing I like about the Ursacks. You know, you can carry your own food and you're responsible for your own food, right? Okay, next question here. There's two more after this here. And we'll let Kevin Ride go after this one here. Are bears the problem, or are people, as in people's habits, the problem?
I think it's unanimous. Both Kevin's and a Cliff all would say it's the people that are the problem. I think it's when, you know, I showed those numbers at the beginning of the show at the Boundary Waters Canoe area. They had like pretty, you know, they have a lot of people always going every year. In COVID, they had over 160,000 people using the BWCA. That's tremendous. That's incredible number of people, and you can educate lots of them. But I bet there's 10,000 there that are causing the problems, or even 1,000 that are causing the problems out of that 160,000. And once bears are smart, once they get habituated to a site, once they learn there's food in blue barrels, once they figure out that's the tree that food is always hung in, they're going to be a problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Sure. Okay, and then Creeks and Trails is asking, you showed 2 counter assault containers. Are those approved for BWCA? I did not see those on the list, but maybe she missed it.
I believe they are. I'd have to look, but there's some sort of interagency grizzly bear certification, and so all these places try and get their containers certified through this agency. It's the same agency. And I forget the time, but it's like, yeah, like they get an hour. They give it to a grizzly bear in captivity with something nice inside, and the grizzly bear gets an hour or more to play with it. And if they're resistant, they're not bear proof. And if they make a hole bigger than an inch in that whatever time, an hour and a half, whatever it is, then it fails. So yeah, I believe it is. I believe that one's registered just like the bear vaults are.
Yeah, Mr. Allen, I couldn't help but notice that thing has not been used. It's still got the perfectly good tag on it. And,
it's interesting what Kevin Ride just brought up, which brings me to an interesting thing with this yellow bear that we talked about earlier. Okay, she was able to get into the Bear Vault 500. That bear vault had been tested in New York at the zoo, but had been tested on grizzly bears. Okay. And black bears are smarter than grizzlies. So there you have it.
And so in the Adirondacks, my understanding is for a period of time, if you owned one of these, you could bring it and give it to the park warden or whatever system they have, and they would give you a different one to use in the backcountry because that one bear figured out how to get into these things.
Oh, wow.
And rumor is she taught her cubs, but I don't know. But yeah, they would you could put this in with their system and they would give you a different barrel to use, which I thought was pretty slick. Because these are good, just not for that one bear.
Yeah.
Okay, and last.
Oh, we just better kill that bear then.
You know, here's a really interesting story. Some years ago, I've done the river twice, the Noatak River. It's the longest river that I know of. You can go on 360 miles without making a portage, all the way to Kospi, Alaska. Well, when you do this, you go through Gates of the Arctic National Park, and they require you to take these bear barrels. Now, these things are steel, okay? They're steel all the way around. There's no handles, no place to grab them. And they had this little latch steel on them, okay? Actually, we used ours for whiskey. And they had this little latch steel on them, and we'd had a few drinks one night, and I said, you know what? I can open that thing with my nose. I know I can. So I got down there and I got my nose under it like that, and I got it moving. But then it started to hurt my nose too much. But then I thought, if you have a paw, you can just go pow and open it goes. So, I said, if I can open it with my nose, a bear can too. But
did anybody film that?
Right now, right?
Seriously, Cliff, did anybody film that? Because
no,
I thought I would.
And very last question from Untamed Ontario, who always has a good question. We'll have to decipher this one a little bit, but what should we do when there is no other option? If you can't hang, and I don't know, I would say store on the ground, but what if that's not an option? What do you do?
Move your campsite.
Don't sleep with it, right?
Move your campsite. Like the first thing I do when I get to a campsite, I look for a bear sign. If it's a bear that's always coming into that campsite, you'll know. Go to the camp fire ring, and if it's sniffed around, logs turn over, poop. When they feed, after that they'll poop. If that's around there, go to another site, because that night a bear is going to come in. So
I'm not sure I understand the question. If there's no other option of what? What's the subject?
No other option. If you can't hang your food, maybe you have no place.
No, but I'm saying is okay. I mean, Kevin's point is well taken. But
yes.
What's the question? What is it? If you get into a campsite and there's just a campsite and there's no bear poop or whatever.
What if perhaps you're on a small island? Okay, you got no place to hang, and you've got no place really to store your food because it's a small island. What do?
Then you just be sure that it's clean, no minimal odor, and you just take it out of camp and hide it under a tree. That's what are your options?
Yes.
You want to stick it in a canoe and float it? Yeah, I don't know. So
like
that's it. That's your option.
If you can, right? Yeah.
Well,
a good way to close it out, anyways. Gentlemen, I have to thank you all for coming on panel tonight and doing this. What we do kind of annually. If anybody is interested in more bear content, you know what? Check out Kevin Ride's channel. He has a lot of content on there on black bears. And also, you can go back into our past episodes. We have all kinds of information that we've shared, many familiar faces that are on panel here now. But a lot of the information may be the same, but there may be other information on there as well. So all you need to do is go to our past episodes playlist and check that out. Donald, thanks for coming on and adding your 2 cents there. And it was very well received. And I like some of your techniques for getting your food safe. Kevin Ride, thank you very much for sharing what you know. Same with Kevin and Cliff. It's great to have everybody on panel again.
It's been nice to see you guys. Thank you very much. It's been very educational.
Kevin, it's great to see you, pal.
Yeah. And you know what? We survived the American shows. We survived them. And I gotta say, I can't wait to go on a solo trip in the north in a couple of weeks and just not talk to anybody.
Well, listen, my friend, you take care. It's always a pleasure chatting with you and drinking whiskey with you. How's that?
I know. Cliff does it all. He always says I bring bad whiskey.
Oh, yeah.
Awesome, gentlemen. I'm just going to drop you all into the green room and close out. Please
all right.
Okay. Appear yet in the chat.
Kevin Ride, great to meet you. Thank you. Donald, thanks for coming. Thank you.
Good to see you, Donald.
See you all in the green room here in a moment.
Yep. Take care, guys.
Oops, I get rid of that picture. There we go. Well, hopefully everybody enjoyed our show tonight on backcountry food safety and do you hang it, don't you hang it, all the BWCA rules and regulations that are going on now. Hopefully you've taken something away from this to keep yourself bear safe when you're in the backcountry. Ultimately, when it comes down to it, for your own safety and for those that follow you on your campsites that you are frequenting, it's your responsibility to maintain and leave a clean campsite. And please do put your fires out because it's fire season again already. Just as a reminder, next week will be our season 5 finale for the regular season. got some special announcements, some special guests that are going to be popping up on show, some past guests. We're going to be talking about the season in review, and also cover a bunch of different things. And we're going to be putting together a good swag giveaway. So you have to be watching the show to be able to participate in that. Anyways, I wish everybody a fantastic week. This guy is leaving for canoeing tomorrow for 4 days. Yes, into the long weekend. I must be crazy, but I hear the black flies are out, and I feel like donating some blood. So anyways, everybody have yourselves a great week. We will talk to you soon. And remember, please do keep the adventures alive. Until next time.